Emad, I want to jump into your recent work and really please open the kimono as much as you're willing. This is a paper that you wrote, When Capital No Longer Needs Labor. How does labor gain capital? You also have spun up your latest company, Intelligent Internet, and tell us about this paper and about Intelligent Internet as far down the rabbit hole as you're willing to go. I'd love to see what your creative mind has been spawning.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, took a bit of time off and sort of been thinking about, like, I think this is the biggest question of our time for humans. Because, there's this thing of how do you create happiness? There's a Japanese concept of ikigai. Do what you like, do what you're good at, do where you believe you're adding value and other people do too. People need that progression. And there's discussions of UBI and others, but as we discussed earlier on in this pod, anything that can be done on the other side of a screen can be done better, faster, and cheaper by a computer this year. Pretty much anything. Yeah. Be it design, be it taxes, all of these things.
Artwork, film production.
Yeah. And you can't tell it's not a human. Again, this is this ARI, this Turing test for remote workers. Then in a few years, and it's only restricted by the number of robots we can produce, number of motorcycles and cars we produce is 70 million each a year. So let's say robots are similar. You get that disruption. As you said, Peter, you estimated 40 cents an hour for an R1 unitary robot. And that will be as capable as a human probably in a year or two. Optimus will be the same. This is the biggest crisis that we have coming because it's an unemployment, underemployment question of meaning. When a technology can do the work better than you can, what is your meaning? And how do you acquire labor when labor acquire capital when it doesn't require you anymore? When Ford had his car, he wanted to pay everyone so they could afford Ford cars. Companies don't care about that as much anymore. So when kind of looking at that, I was like, there are various science fiction futures that are outlined here, like things from Culture by Banks to the Star Treks and the others. We're probably moving into an abundance post-scarcity economy, but can we make sure this is evenly distributed? Can we enable people to have a universal basic AI? So it's up to them how they do this. And then the further question is, what is meaning in this? Because the existing economic structures break down. And as a very practical example of that, let's take the Fed. There'll be lots of discussions about the Fed. Today's the Fed cut rates, and other things like that. The Fed's mandate is interest rates, inflation, unemployment. You cut interest rates, that adjusts inflation and employment. That's gone. The actual mandate of the Fed in the next 5 years completely doesn't work anymore. Because you cut interest rates, what does it mean? It means people will buy more GPUs, more computers, right? Maybe.
And more robots.
More robots. And that won't impact unemployment. You'll have massive inflation and deflation cycles. So the very basis of our economy is messed up. And so that's why I was like, what can we do to help with that? That's why this concept of intelligent internet. Give universal basic AI to everyone. Gold standard data sets, models, systems. We're figuring out ways to coordinate that, but put this into every nation and build teams that think about what is the future of healthcare, education, maybe faith, government, politics, and get everyone to work in the open to build an open infrastructure. Because we have lots of questions that we don't have answers to, and human talent augmented by computers are probably the only way we're going to figure this out. But we need to join it together. Because the problems we face here in the UK or US are similar to Spain, India, everywhere. So we've got to create that global network.
There's two layers to this. There's the recreation of meaning, because, for the last few hundred years, your occupation, your job title was the meaning you had in your life. And as we strip that away, people have to find new models for meaning. Entrepreneurship is a rising class because of that people can find their own meaning. We talk about MTPs all the time. I think the second layer is, how do you just ensure basic supply chains of goods and services so that you have bread on the grocery store shelves and clean water, et cetera, et cetera. And I think governments are going to be very stretched to figure this out in an age of potentially malicious AIs that can spread disinformation and really damage infrastructure via the autonomous remote monitoring stuff that they'll be able to do. I think those two buckets have to be addressed. I don't know as a species if we can navigate through those in an effective way. Certainly our leadership has no mechanism to deal with this because they're either not aware of the problem or they don't understand the scale of what's coming. And one of those two disqualifies most leadership and most legislators around the world from this. So it's a sticky problem. It's going to have to be done by smart citizens groups, etc., that will navigate this.
I'm concerned about the meaning issue as well in a huge way. I think we're heading towards a world of what I call technological socialism, where technology is taking care of you, it is feeding you, it is educating you, it's taking care of your health, it's all free. You don't need to do much of anything. So how do you we all know that a video game that's way too easy is boring and you stop playing. And so when life gets boring, how do we keep humans engaged? We need struggle and we need meaning in our lives.
I think, Isaiah Berlin had this conceptualization of positive liberty versus negative liberty. Positive liberty was the freedom to believe in isms. Fascism, communism, religion. They tended to end up quite bad, so he postulated negative liberty. The freedom from anyone telling you what to do, which led to this laissez-faire capitalism and other things. And people find meaning in their brands and these narratives and stories. It strikes me that as we move into this next phase, these historical things are coming back in force. We're seeing the polarization of the media and the political class. People are going to sign up to more and more extremist ideologies, exclusionary, negative someones, unless we can give the positive views of the future of abundance, of collaboration and more. Because otherwise you're stuck in your local maxima.
Yeah.
Most of these elections have been, I want change, because fundamentally, how many people believe in the American dream or the British dream or the Spanish dream or the Indian dream anymore? People aren't actually saying positive visions of the future because people don't believe you anymore. They don't believe our politicians. Who are the leaders?
We need those positive visions. We need the Star Trek utopian, not the Star Wars dystopian.
When we've looked at we had as a community did some look at history of when societies or certain pockets meet abundance. Peter, what do? Right? So the Romans take over Europe. What do? What happens when the Mughals take over India and they have relative abundance? And it turns out they end up in food, art, music, and sex as four major, not in that order, as major activities. And then you find ways of doing creativity because human beings struggle for the next level of things always. We're so built in for that. So there's some optimism in that world.
I can't think of a place. So listen, Stephen Kotler and I are writing Age of Abundance. It's our follow-on. And the big element of the book we think about is how do we up-level human ambition in a world in which we're gods and we are incredibly godlike. How do we up-level our ambitions that make it worth living, make it challenging for us?
Just a quick comment here. Stuart Brand, the futurist, used to say, we are as gods, we might as well start acting like it. Yeah. And he said that in 1968.
No, we're more godlike than ever. So, do we all revert into a video game world? Do we all get BCI? This year at the Abundance Summit, I've got Max Hodak coming. Emad, I don't know if you know Max. He was a co-founder of Neuralink with Elon, and he's got a new company called Science, which is doing extraordinary work, like 100, 1,000, 10,000-fold more neural connections and bandwidth on a BCI than we're seeing with Neuralink. Can we add another corpus callosum-like connection to the cloud that allows us to couple with AI as AI is taking off versus, be left behind like the movie Her?
Yeah, these things are coming quick and we have to answer those questions. Like even this weekend, I had 6 people I know call me and said, I'm having a crisis of meaning because of R1. Once I saw the logic and the way it was thinking, right? That's going to happen more and more. But then again, like I said, we have to think about the mass of people and the human side of this. I think our current systems take away our agency as slow, dumb AI. And one of the main things here is reintroducing the belief of agency. I can't do this. I can't do that. With this technology, there's nothing that, there's a lot more you can do because it raises the floor for everyone, which is, from my perspective, why we had to get it into the hands of everyone and then make them feel like they're a participant in this. Because the other part of this is it seems remote. I think this is another part of this shock that we've had in the last few days, right? How are you involved in AI? You need to have nuclear reactors and like giant chips and this and that. All of a sudden you can run it on your smartphone. You know, it's very humanizing. And this, again, why I'm a big believer in open source, to have that.
Amazing. I love that. I love that as even a title of this pod, The Crisis of Meaning. You know, it's incredibly powerful.